What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Dave Savage coming to you live with the one and only Mitch Kider. What's up, Mitch?
Hey, Dave, good to see you. Good to be with you here in the Mortgage Coach community. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I wish I could see you more in person. Multiple times a year, I would see you at conferences, the MBA. I still remember doing that a couple times. We did a I don't know, round table at your office in Washington, D.C. Can't wait to do that again.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We just got to be a little more patient, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic these days. So we'll get there.
Well, if there's CEOs or executives in the mortgage space, they all know who Mitch Kider is because he's one of America's most well-known, most well-respected attorneys, specialized in compliance. Mitch, we're seeing a flood of new loan officers coming into the business, and I guarantee you there are some new loan officers that are like, who's Mitch Kider? So why don't you just take a minute and tell folks, new loan officers, new branch managers, tell them who Mitch Kider is in your perspective.
All right, guys. So I love your industry. I'll start off that way. I'm an attorney. I practice out of Washington, D.C., but I practice all over the country. I have actually represented your industry. That's been my focus for 40 years this year. I graduated law school back in 1981, so it's been 40 years. And to your industry, I started a firm back in 1992, and it is a full service firm to the industry. We do everything for your companies and for you guys. We do regulatory work on a federal level, on a state level. We do your transactional work, buying and selling portfolios and companies, a lot of M&A work, and we do your major litigation, which is something I really enjoy doing, defending class action lawsuits. I've defended more than 150 of them over the years, way more than 150 of them over the years, and suits that are brought by the government. You work for a great industry over here. You create great opportunities for consumers. Home ownership is really important in this country. And so, if you ask me who I am, I like to think of myself as a troubleshooter for your industry. I like to keep you guys out of trouble. And
I love that.
Make sure it works out well.
I always liked you. I mean, there's some attorneys where you don't like him as much, but guys, Mitch Kider is awesome. There's a video I watched one time and it was your story. Is that available on social media anywhere? Is there a link they could go to and just hear the Mitch Kider story?
So it's on, what's it called? Vimeo. That's what it's on. That was a video that was made by the Mortgage Bankers Association. It might actually be on their website still as well. I haven't looked in a long time, but they kept it on their website for years. I think it probably still is there. Maybe
I'll find it.
Maybe on the Mortgage Action Alliance page or the MORPAC page, one of those pages. But you can find it on Vimeo as well. It's called Mitch Kider, The Power of Home Ownership. You'll see my whole story. I am a first-generation American. My parents survived the Holocaust. They came to this country. And, home ownership did a lot for me, did a lot for us. And so here I am.
Well, it's an amazing story. I highly recommend you guys check it out. It will move you and it will help you know who Mitch is. And you need to know who Mitch is because compliance is important. And I always say compliance is a competitive advantage. Like a lot of things that you should be doing because they're compliant, you should be doing because it's good service. It's good leadership. So let's talk. There's a change in leadership. What do you think this means? Just give us a high level, what's the new change in leadership mean to the industry?
Well, obviously it means a little bit of a different focus, quite frankly, a little bit going back to where we were prior to the 4 years of the Trump administration, hopefully not going all the way back to where we were during the Richard Cordray years at the CFPB, for example. But, it means that there's going to be a focus on certain things that necessarily haven't been focused on recently. Right now we're in a transition period. The bottom line is, you've got a new president. You're still getting people approved for the offices that they're in. They're going to take a little time. They're going to study what's going on. And it's going to be a little bit of a different tone and a little bit of a different attitude and a little bit of a different agenda that's facing our industry. And that's the way it is. Listen, you go through these you go through economic cycles, you go through political cycles as well. And so, it's important everyone be ready for it.
Well, I reached out to a number of leaders in our space, telling them I was going to interview you. And Brian Bomar gave me a couple of questions to ask. I think that one might have been Brian's. What's going to be different? Jay Kroll wanted me to ask you, what practices have we grown comfortable with that we should reconsider in the light of the new enforcement?
So that's a really good question, and it's not necessarily, reconsidering these practices in their entirety, because there's a place for it. And I will tell you that, the industry that you're in today is very different than the industry that existed in 2011, when, for example, the CFPB first became operative. I think the industry has learned a lot of lessons, and I think compliance, for the most part, with many lenders, is still on the top of the list, because, as you said, it does give you a competitive advantage, quite frankly, and it's a healthy way of doing business. But in terms of practices that we should think a little bit more about and we should put more controls in, I think the first thing I put on the list actually deals with fair lending practice, or it's something that creates fair lending issues. And I say that because discrimination and fair lending, discrimination in general and fair lending specifically for this particular industry, is on the very, very top of the Biden-Harris agenda. And so, if I look at practices, the one practice that even through the Trump administration was getting people in trouble was the pricing discretion that loan originators have, and that they utilize. Now, there's a good reason to have some pricing discretion. There are competitive reasons for it. You want to keep the deal, you want to make it happen, things along those particular lines. But I'll tell you, when you look at fair lending examinations, it is generally the issue of LO price discretion that causes pricing disparities, where you find those outliers. So that's a practice that has to be rethought a little bit. And I think we need much better controls. I think we need policies and procedures. I think we need controls as to when you should exercise that discretion, when you should not exercise that discretion. And you should always have an eye toward being equitable. You have to have an eye toward fair lending. So I'd probably put that one really on the top of my list. There are a lot of other ones as well, but I put that right up top because that is a key priority of this new administration.
Well, I have to say, I personally like that, because I think when we're more consistent as an industry with how we price, we deliver better service. And then, being Mr. Mortgage Coach, and by the way, Mitch, I think you'll be stoked to hear, but any guesses on how many times a Mortgage Coach total cost analysis was created in 2020? Any guesses on that?
Oh,
I'm not going to put you on the spot.
My guess is that it's in the millions.
There you go. 1.7 million TCAs created, and they were viewed by families 5.5 million times. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So we're in guys, and Mitch, put this in context for people. Like, when you give a fee worksheet, first of all, it can be confusing. Two, it is a commodity: rate, payment, cash to close. And it's not cool if you give one family this and then you give another family this. Like, it's not good business. It's not good selling that the grinder, or the sophisticated borrower gets this educational experience, and the person that barely qualifies for a home and that, is just happy that they got approved, doesn't get the ultimate experience. Like, everybody should get the same experience. Any thoughts on that, Mitch?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why I like Mortgage Coach so much. I love what you guys have done. I love your cost analysis and the manner in which you teach people to utilize it. But the reality is, too many times in this industry, people are not treated the same. People are not treated fairly. And, I think we finally hit that inflection point. I think we actually finally hit that point in time when, we're waking up to it. As a nation, we're waking up to it, and things are going to change, and they have to change. And this industry has to take a front seat, a front row seat to the change. We have to make that happen over here. So that's exactly right.
Well, and here's, when I say compliance and competitive advantage, guys, it's like this. I've interviewed enough top performing loan officers that are doing insane amounts of business. And you know what they all do? The same thing every time. Like, like delivering the same awesome experience to every family, it's good compliance. It's also what top producers do. Because if you don't do the same thing every time, you never get really good at it. And that's one of the many reasons that Mitch and I love doing stuff together like this. So Mitch, I know a lot of folks are going to have, their loan officers. And while we do have C-suite watching this, we got a lot of loan officers and they're like, what does this mean to comp? Do you see any big changes in comp in the next 12 to 36 months?
I don't think compensation issues were really focused on very much in the last administration. I don't see big changes to comp. No, I don't. I see more enforcement of the rules that exist today. That's what I see happening there. I mean, the reality is, and this has always been true, in this industry, lenders play on an unlevel playing field, and it's an unlevel playing field created by themselves. There are some lenders that will look at an LO comp rule and they'll say, you know what, we're keeping to this. We're sticking to this. We're going to go seek the right advice. We're going to make this happen the way it's supposed to happen. There are some lenders that say, hey, you know what, I haven't seen any enforcement out there. Or maybe I've seen 1 or 2 cases and I'll take my chance over here. And, you see these letters going out to other companies saying, hey, come over to my company because I know your company won't pay you this way, but I'll pay you this way, and things along those particular lines. And that's created an unlevel playing field. I actually think that, the people that are walking into the CFPB now, I think the new director, I think he's data driven. I also think he is markets driven. And I think, and I actually hope that one of their goals is to level that playing field, to just help out along those particular lines. I'm not looking for them to take enforcement actions. I'm not looking for them to go after people. I'm looking for more education as to what the rules are. I don't see them changing those rules, in all honesty. I really don't, other than in a couple of areas that I can tell you about. But I do see more. I see them looking more. Okay, I see them examining it more to make sure that you're in compliance with those rules, and you should be, because it's very expensive not to be in compliance with it. I mean, it's really a problem as to what it can be. And lenders are learning today that, loan officers, branch managers, once they leave their company, they turn around sometimes and they say, hey, wait a minute, look at what I just found over here. I don't think I was paid the right way, even when they were overpaid. And they say, that's an LO comp violation. There are suits that are ongoing along those particular lines. Who needs that kind of aggravation? Listen, the LO compensation rule, when it came out in 2011, I was not in favor of that particular rule. I don't believe in a system that regulates compensation. I don't. We're a free market economy. We don't need to be regulating compensation along those lines. There are aspects of the rule, there are elements of the rule that I think are right, and it goes to fairness, and that is not to steer people into loan products that will, in fact, pay you more than other loan products will. And so I think the rule did a good job of creating anti-steering provisions. And for the most part, I think this industry is really good about following it. But anyway, my overall point is there are very few industries that have wage restrictions or that have compensation restrictions on it. This happens to be one of it. Listen, we have to deal with it. And you really want to go out there, you want to compete. In fact, you want to grab that competitive advantage, but you want to do it on a level playing field, and you want to do it straightforward and honestly. And so the rule is there. I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it's going away. I don't think it's going to become more restrictive, but I don't think it's going to become less restrictive either, quite frankly. And we just have to learn to re-educate ourselves and double down our efforts to make sure that all of us are in compliance with it.
What about just partnering with realtors on advertising, joint ventures? How do you think that'll be different in the new administration, or any highlights there for you?
So I don't think it will be different in terms of what the rules are. I mean, listen, when Richard Cordray headed up the CFPB during the Obama administration, he tried to make up the rules. That's just the truth. He tried to make up the way it worked. RESPA was interpreted one way for 40 years, and he came in and said, nah, I don't think that's right. I'm going to interpret it my own way. That's what the PHH case that I litigated was all about. But ultimately, in the PHH case, we got a 110-page decision from the District of Columbia Court of Appeals that basically tells you how to read Section 8 of RESPA. So do I think that the guys that are coming in now are going to do the same thing and give you a whole new interpretation on RESPA? I don't. I don't think so. I don't think that's what these guys are all about. Do I think they're going to have more enforcement? Do I think they're going to look harder? Yeah, I do. I think they're going to, they're going to look at it and they're going to want to make a determination as to whether or not your policies and procedures are in compliance with RESPA itself. In the last couple of years, Dave, there has been a proliferation of joint ventures. Everyone wants to get into a joint venture with a realtor, a brokerage firm, or even agents and builders, and things along those particular lines. Last couple of years, people are jumping into MSAs again. There are some issues with that. Not that either one of those things is illegal, but you have to jump through the right hoops to do it properly. So for an MSA, for example, you can't do an MSA with a real estate shop that just stuffs letters to their own clientele and says, use this mortgage company, okay? That's a referral, nothing more than that. And there is a rule on the books that's been there since 2010, says you can pay for advertising, and MSA is okay, but it's gotta be an advertisement that's meant to reach the general public, okay? That's what it's gotta be. So we're gonna have to focus on that, and we're gonna have to do those particular things. Joint ventures, same kind of things. There are joint ventures that are great. I understand a home builder wanting to get into the business. I even understand realtors wanting to get into the business, okay? Then set up a right joint venture. Set it up as a mortgage banking company. You can have a mortgage banking partner along those lines, but put the money in the thing, capitalize it, make it a real business itself, okay? Don't just set up something, for example, that's a straight out mortgage broker shop where all the loans come in from one place and you broker the loans to your partner, because there have already been consent orders in the past on that, and they're going to be looking for those things again. So yeah, I don't think RESPA is changing. RESPA is almost like, our Constitution, to tell you the truth. It was enacted in 1975. No one's been able to break it yet, and I don't think anyone's going to break it. There've been some attempts at it, but it's not happening. So the law is going to stay the way it is. And I think, unlike this regulation through enforcement that we saw in the Cordray administration, I'm hoping, and I don't think we're going to see that now. I think these people are different than that, even though they were there at the time. I think you're going to see them looking at it and saying, okay, but I want it enforced. I want these rules to be followed, and I want them followed the right way. I don't think they're going to renege on the interpretations that were out there, but so I think we have some tightening up to do in the industry.
Well, it sounds pretty promising to me. And, my biggest takeaway for any loan officer that's listening to this, to any branch manager, if you have consistent ways that you deliver advice and price to families, make sure you're treating everybody the same. Again, that's good sales strategy. That's good leadership. And it's important. It's never been more important to your compliance. So I'm going to try to get Mitch. Well, not try. He said he was willing to come into the community more this year. So if you do have questions for Mitch, put those in comments below. You can, private message me. But best is just put them in comments below in our social media. Mitch, if anyone wants to reach out to you, I mean, obviously loan officers aren't reaching out to you, but if they want to follow you or see the C-suite executives that listen to this want to get in touch with you or follow you, what are the best channels, the best way for people to do that?
All right. So if you want to get in touch with me, the email address is Kider, Kider, at thewbkfirm.com. Phone number, my direct dial, which you can get to me on every time, whenever I'm working, is 202-557-3511. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and you can actually follow me on Twitter. I'm actually pretty active in sending out updates to the industry about laws that are passed, things that are going on, both on a federal and a state level. So please do. It's at Mitch Kider on Twitter.
Right on. Well, Mitch, I am looking forward to future conversations. Thank you for jumping online. We're streaming this live in our Facebook group, and this will be on our YouTube channel. Remember, guys, if you have questions for Mitch, just put them in comments, whatever channel you're watching this. Thank you, Mitch Kider.
Hey, my pleasure. Great seeing you. Thanks.